Just like its mission on Mars, the Red Planet rover Perseverance just keeps cruising right along, blowing past another milestone, February 18th, marking the 4th anniversary of its landing on Mars. Joining us now, Cornell astronomer Alex Hayes, whose team operates that super sophisticated camera on Percy. Alex, I love catching up with you, especially on these anniversaries like this and this amazing mission. Good to see you again.
Thanks. Very nice to see you too, Jeff. Thanks for the opportunity.
So remind me, Alex, I mean, how long was this mission realistically expected to last, that Percy would be on Mars?
You know, all these missions are engineered by some of the best folks at NASA and all of the contractors who build it. And the question of how long they last always surprises us, because they are built to be guaranteed to last, in Percy's case, 1 Mars year, but they will last substantially longer. And historically, that's been what's happened. The Mars exploration rovers lasted Opportunity almost 15 years, and that we thought was built to only last 90 days. And so what ultimately causes these missions to end is really up in the air. We don't know if it's going to be a hardware component that eventually will fail, if the funding and the federal budget is going to require us to prioritize funding other things, or if it'll be used for a different campaign. But I would say that Perseverance has a sister rover called Curiosity from the Mars Science Laboratory mission that landed in 2012, in August 6th of 2012, and is still operating today.
Oh my goodness.
So that mission is 13 years into its life, and so I don't see why Perseverance couldn't last as long, if not longer.
Let's do it. I can only imagine how important it is that Percy and these other rovers can last so much longer and collect so many more samples with all this extra time on Mars.
Yeah, what's really exciting is to take advantage of that mobility, right? The rovers are there because they can move. And so we can learn something about where we land, and then we can drive somewhere else and learn something about the next neighboring environment. And so in Perseverance's case, we landed in the floor of a crater called Jezero, which was a volcanic floor where lava had solidified at the base of the depression, and we learned a lot about the volcanic history of Mars. But then we were able to drive up to the next part of the crater that we were really hoping to study, which is this sedimentary deposit, or delta. There's actually a piece of it sitting behind me in the background here called Kodiak, that is a deposit that occurred over some number of thousands of years with a river flowing into an ancient lake bed. And so we're learning about that habitable lake environment. Then we can continue moving up off the delta up to the crater rim and look at some of the oldest rocks on Mars, some of the oldest rocks that humans have ever studied from the earliest crust of Mars that it was exposed by the crater itself. And then moving off of the crater, where we are now, we're looking at the surrounding countryside and the areas and the geologic context in the areas next to Jezero crater. So really, what time gives us is the ability to keep traversing and moving into new environments and learn completely new things about Mars and step through Mars's history.
Curious, Alex, how, because obviously you're intimately involved in the camera system, how's that holding up on Percy?
Oh, the cameras are doing great. In fact, we're working right now on writing up how well they've been doing and learning how to use them on Mars, and determining that many of the things we actually spent a lot of time analyzing on Earth to learn about the cameras, we've been able to validate have stayed the same on Mars. And we're learning new ways to work with these systems and perhaps even calibrate these systems when they're in flight. So the cameras are doing better today than when they first landed.
Wow. Which kind of leads me to my next one. It might be my last one, but we'll see. Obviously, the samples are the main goal, to collect them and to eventually get them back to Earth. But how much are we actually learning just in the simple fact that the rover, the cameras, all the equipment are lasting so long in these environments?
Right. So really, sample science is the gift that keeps on giving, and the entire goal of the Mars Sample Return program is to get samples from Mars back to Earth so we can put all of Earth's laboratories to work studying them. But in order to really understand the results that detailed analysis will give us, we have to understand the context of where those samples come from. And that's where the rover comes in, providing all of that context of the history of the environment from which we're grabbing the samples. And so we are learning so much about the ancient history of Mars. We're finding places that were habitable in the past to help us determine where to grab those samples, and provide the information surrounding where we grab the samples, telling us the history of what those samples were both part of, where they came from, and what they were subjected to afterwards. So it's really working hand in hand, understanding the big picture from what the rover's telling us and what we can learn about the history of Mars and the history of the environment from where we grab the samples, and then really learning the absolute intricate details about those samples and what they're made of by bringing them back to Earth and using Earth-bound laboratories and instruments that we could never miniaturize and get on top of a rocket to tell us everything that we could possibly learn from the details in those samples.
Alex, a lot more learning to do here. We're going to have you back. I know that to talk about this and some of the other stuff you have coming up. Thanks for your time. Really appreciate it today.
I really appreciate it. Love to chat. Bye.